proclamation in
What are
here?
you wasting your time?
The other side of the Know Your Neighbor. We ready?
I see, oh yeah, this one.
Okay, it being 6 o'clock, I'm going to call to order this Select Board meeting of September 9, 2024. I want to let everybody know that Chelmsford Telemedia is broadcasting this meeting live and recording it for later rebroadcast. If you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God. Thank you. So we have 4 members of our board here tonight, and 1 member is joining us by Zoom. Pat Maloney is joining us by Zoom this evening. So we will start with public service announcements.
Okay, so first we have an announcement from the age-friendly Chelmsford, the Friends of the Senior Center, I'm sorry. They're introducing October Know Your Neighbor socials all around Chelmsford. Free Know Your Neighbor kits available to all Chelmsford town departments, groups, and clubs or businesses. They include pins, icebreaker chat cards to encourage conversations, name tags, and printed flyers and a social media kit if requested. If you're interested in hosting your own, you can contact Deb Siriani at 978-251-0533. And you are supposed to register by September 25th, 2024 for your kit. Next, we have a proclamation, the Town of Chelmsford Proclamation for National Service Dog Month, September 2024. Whereas we believe in the joyful, transformative power of the human canine bond and inclusivity of all residents, and whereas in the United States, 64 million adults and children have a disability and only 16,000 service dogs from accredited training programs exist nationwide, and the need is growing. And whereas we recognize and support organizations which provide expertly trained service dogs, ongoing support to ensure quality partnerships, and puppies that are specially bred, raised, and trained for their future careers. And whereas service dogs empower people with disabilities to lead life with greater independence and enhanced quality of life. And whereas National Service Dog Month aims to educate our community about the benefits of service dogs and the laws protecting them. And whereas the town of Chelmsford continues to work toward becoming an inclusive community in which all residents and their service dogs are embraced. Now, therefore, in recognition of service dogs and the adults and children with disabilities in our community, we, the Chelmsford Select Board, do hereby proclaim September to be National Service Dog Month and encourage all residents to celebrate service dogs and be respectful of the rights afforded to the adults, children, and veterans who lead more independent lives because of their assistance. Next, we have an announcement about the walking group that is hosted by the Health Department. They welcome you to join as they walk on the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail the 2nd and 4th Tuesday of every month, May through September, from 9 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. They meet at the 110 ball fields at the intersection of Fletcher Street and Chelmsford Street. For questions, you can contact the Health Department, 978-250-5241. Another announcement from the Chelmsford Health Department. They are hosting a karaoke sober edition every second Friday of the month. It is at the Chelmsford Center for the Arts in the Cabaret Room from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Free admission, mocktails available for purchase, and snacks.
And next, we have an announcement from the Strategic Planning Committee. we and our strategic planning consultant, Barry Dunn, are hosting a community kickoff event for the strategic plan. It is family-friendly. There'll be free ice cream, snacks, and kids and craft activities available. Gathering starts at 5:30 p.m., and the formal meeting will start at 6. And we're really encouraging anyone who can come and would like to weigh into the future of Chelmsford and get an orientation to the whole process to please join us. Thank you.
Thanks, Virginia. The Chelmsford Health Department would also like to announce CPR training Monday, September 23rd at the Chelmsford Town Hall at 50 Billerica Road. That is from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's $20 per person, Chelmsford residents only, and participants who complete the 4-hour training will obtain an American Heart Association Heart Saver CPR AED First Aid Certificate that is valid for 2 years. Questions can be directed to the Chelmsford Health Department. Also from the Health Department, we have a depression and anxiety support group facilitated every fourth Tuesday of the month from 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Chelmsford Center for the Arts in the Cabaret Room. More information can be found with the Health Department, 978-250-5241. From the Chelmsford Friends of the Library, they would like to announce the fall book sale, one of my personal favorites, September 27th, 28th, and 29th. A large selection of fiction, nonfiction, children, and young adult books. It will be Friday the 27th from 9 to 7:30 p.m., Saturday the 28th from 9 to 5, and Sunday the 29th from 9 to 1. And it is at the Town Hall Gym at 50 Billerica Road. It's a great place for kids' books. Next, the Chelmsford Health Department is announcing the 3rd Annual Fall Festival. Saturday, September 28th from 11 to 4 on the Chelmsford Town Common. There's free princess performances, a petting zoo, a bounce house, touch-a-truck, face painting, food trucks, and vendors selling drinks and food. And that's great. Virginia has one.
And another one from the Strategic Plan Committee. We'd love to see you at one of the in-person events or the kickoff on the 18th. And whether or not you can make it to that, please be aware that there is a Social Pinpoint website where you can provide input directly into the community-based strategic plan. There's a survey that you can take. There's also a section where you can provide open comments to an ideas wall, and you can have discussions with your fellow residents on a third section of the site. So we encourage everyone to at least take the survey. Thank you.
And did you want to speak to the fire station?
Yep. So the next one is for the proposed fire station construction projects. On November 5th, there will be a ballot question where Chelmsford residents decide whether to fund construction projects that will provide upgrades to 2 fire stations in town, namely Station 3 on Old Westford Road and Station 5 on Acton Road. The demands in the community have grown. Our population has doubled, more than doubled since the stations were built. The number of calls has gone up by a factor of 7.5. And when you consider the locations of the stations and being able to respond to public safety needs, as well as the living conditions of the firefighters, both of these stations need to be renovated and updated. They are not current to current OSHA standards. They don't accommodate multiple genders, and our firefighters are in unsafe environments where living and sleeping quarters are very close to contaminants. There are a number of public education opportunities and events listed on the brochure, and I would just like to point out that if you'd like a live tour of the stations, we're offering that on Saturday, October 5th. There will be an information session on Thursday, October 10th, and an open Q&A before the election on October 29th. We're also going to be releasing videos within the next couple of weeks, giving video tours of the stations, a roundtable discussion, and a demonstration of an extrication event. So please come to one of these events or visit the website, where you can also use an estimator to calculate the tax impact to your home. Thank you.
Next, we have a save the date from the Choose Chelmsford, about the Choose Chelmsford Age Strong Job Fair. And this will be held Wednesday, October 2nd from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Meet with 30 local employers. And this is at 50 Billerick Road at the rear entrance. More information can be obtained from calling them at 978-244-3303. And last but not least, we have a request from the Chelmsford DPW. The Chelmsford DPW is seeking contractors for snow plowing for the 2024-2025 winter season. They are offering a $1,500 incentive payment for each vendor or piece of equipment registered with the town. All completed application packages are due Monday, October 21st, 2024. And for more information, I would contact the DPW. And that's all we have for today.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up is a public input section of the meeting. Is there anybody that has, from the public, that has anything they want to talk to the board about today? There's nobody in this room. Anybody on Zoom? Okay, thank you. Committee vacancies.
The following committees and boards have vacancies as of September 9th, 2024. The Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, the CCA Town Hall Advisory Committee, the Center Village Master Plan Implementation Committee, the Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee, the Commission on Disabilities, the Community Action Program Committee, the Conservation Commission, the Cultural Council, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, the Historic District Commission, the Holiday Decorating Committee, the Parade Committee, the Personnel Board, the Public Records Advisory Committee, and the Recycling Committee, and also the Roberts Field Advisory Committee. If you are interested in serving on a town board or committee, please complete an online application available on the town website or contact the town manager's office for more information.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next we have a public hearing. We have just one public hearing this evening, and it has to do with renewing or not the Verizon cable television license. So federal and state law require that we hold a public hearing to consider approval of the town's proposed Verizon renewal license. This hearing is for the public to have an opportunity to comment on the proposed non-exclusive renewal license and provides an opportunity for us, the Select Board, to deliberate and vote on the proposed renewal license. Copies of the legal advertisements and the proposed license are entered as public hearing exhibits. By way of background, Chelmsford's cable license is due to expire on October 31st, 2024. This hearing follows prior public proceedings and diligent ascertainment activity to identify town and public renewal needs. A copy of the proposed renewal license has been available for public review in the clerk's office public cable file. We're grateful to have Chelmsford TV Executive Director Pete Padula and Town Manager Paul Cohen here to discuss their due diligence and hard work throughout the license renewal process. In this proceeding, we're open to accepting comments about cable matters relating to the proposed license renewal. Members of this board may also have questions or comments. So before proceeding to public comments, I'd like to briefly recognize Verizon's representative, John Harrington, for his cooperation working with the town on a licensing process. So, Mr. Harrington, if you'd like to share a few words regarding this license renewal, you can do so at this time. Is he there?
He's there, yeah. If he'd unmute, John. And you're welcome to turn your camera on.
There I am.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. No, I'd just like to thank the participation of the town and Bill August in working through this. I know there are some fundamental changes to the renewal, and but it does reflect the present status of cable TV in the country. And we were happy to work with the town to meet the cable-related needs. And again, I'd just like to thank everyone that worked on this.
Okay, thank you. And as noted, Pete Padula is here. I'd like to have him come up to the microphone and give your thoughts.
Sure, yeah, I am Pete Padula. You guys know me. I'm the director of Chelmsford Telemedia. And yeah, we've worked through this process. The Comcast renewal was earlier this year. It's a similar process. Attorney August helped us out a lot, Paul Cohen, and we've done this before. So, it's we're happy with this contract. It's very similar. The only difference, I think this is what Mr. Harrington might have been referring to, is that we did get a little less per capita in terms of capital, but it makes a lot of sense when you look at the way subscriptions have been going. So we felt that was very fair. It also it's a good amount, so we're comfortable with that. We know that will help us with our equipment needs going forward for the next 5 years, which is the term of this contract. The percentage went up from 4.5 to 5%, which is also going to help us out a little bit. And we do get the option to add an HD channel, and we have internal discussions about how we might make that work. So overall, we're just happy with the way it's turned out. We don't see any reason from the public access side to have any problem with this contract. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay, any questions for Pete? No. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for being here.
Sure, pleasure.
Okay, now we're ready to accept comments from the public and any interested persons. Is there anybody in the room that would like to speak to this contract? Apparently not anybody on
There's nobody on the Zoom either.
Okay, does anyone on the board have any questions or comments? I just have one question. On page 17, under the customer service section, it mentions about outage credits, and I just wonder if that's automatic, if Verizon knows when certain customers don't have service and adjusts their bills appropriately, or if the customer is expected to call. And Mr. Harrington, I guess maybe it would be you that would answer that?
I would answer it if I had the answer, but I will get the answer for you when I'll report back to Bill August.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious. Any other questions? Apparently not. We're ready for a motion. Aaron?
Am I authorizing?
You're closing the public hearing.
Oh, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second. Oh, sorry.
Second. Well,
We have three of them.
Ready to close the public hearing.
All right, we have a motion and several seconds to close the public hearing. What's that, Pat?
aye.
George?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
And I'm aye with 5-0. Okay, now we'll take a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the non-exclusive renewal license effective November 1st, 2024, immediately following the expiration of the current license on October 31st, 2024, as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Pat?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
May I make one friendly wording amendment to the motion?
Sure.
Okay. Because the town, under the state regs, is supposed to file a statement with the state DTC, with the license, when it's finally executed. That filing is supposed to include a very brief statement of reason. So there was a motion I circulated which just had some very general statements, like having found that Verizon has the financial, legal, and technical abilities. Do you have that copy of the motion?
Yes, we do. It was about-
Okay,
You need to
is it,
read it.
I recommend reading that, because then it becomes much easier for us to do the filing. We can use the reasons in the motion as the reasons stated in the filing letter. Okay.
Oh, the whole thing.
That's what it says. That's the motion.
Oh, I understand. You want me to read all 4 paragraphs that are in the motion here?
Yes.
Okay, I
Then
understand.
I don't have to do any work chasing down reasons and getting approval of reasons. The approval will be the motion. And they're written to be very general, just basic, as you can read it and you'll see. Okay.
Does anyone on the board have any? No concerns or
That's-
with this?
that-
Okay. Then in that case, I will reword the motion. Sure. I will make a motion to renew the Verizon license renewal, acting in its capacity as the statutory cable television license issuing authority pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 166A, and finding that the cable license renewal proposal of Verizon reasonably meets the license and cable-related renewal needs and interests of the public and the town, and finding that Verizon's financial and technical qualifications and Verizon's proposed support for the local programming channels, studio, facilities, and services are reasonable to meet town cable license needs. And based on the recommendation of our renewal team consisting of the town manager and municipal cable council for approving of continuing Verizon as a license serving the town, the Chelmsford Select Board hereby approves the Verizon proposed non-exclusive renewal license effective November 1st, 2024, immediately following the expiration of the current license on October 31st, 2024.
Yeah, that's what I had in, good.
Second.
Okay, we have an amended motion and a second, so we'll take a roll call vote. Pat?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
Okay, and then aye, 5-0. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Harrington.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank
Bill.
Thank you all.
John.
Thank you, John, and thank you. I wanted to say thanks to Paul Cohen, who was unbelievably diligent, and Christina and Pete. Thank you all, and John. Thanks, folks. Bye.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one license this evening, a one-day all-alcohol beverage license. Do we have anybody here to speak about that? No, okay. Do we have a motion for that?
I will make a motion to approve the one-day all-alcoholic beverage license for St. Bartinant's Armenian Church at 180 Old Westford Road for November 23rd, 2024, as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do a roll call vote. Pat?
Aye.
George? Aaron?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, 5-0. Okay, next up, having to do with license fees. James and Christina, I know, did some work to gather information about surrounding communities and their license fees and different requirements on license fees, those that have a maximum according to state law, and how many we have of each type, and the revenue that we get from each type. Is Christina still on?
Yes, she is.
Christina, if you want to give us a brief update of what you found and make some recommendation, if you have any, about where we might go.
Sure. Good evening, members of the board. So James did a good job reaching out to some comparable communities to gather the information that you have there on that spreadsheet. So the history of the select board licensing fees, or relatively recent history. Some of you were on the board in 2019 when a review was done back then, and none of the fees were raised at that time. And the fees we did the same comparable towns back in 2019, and they mostly all look the same at this point. Prior to that review in 2019, some of the fees were raised in 2008. Alcohol license fees haven't been raised since in the year 2000. There was a two-step increase voted in for license years 2001 and 2002. So we are looking at the same alcohol license fees that we've had for close to a quarter decade at this point.
You mean a quarter century?
Quarter century.
That's what I mean, yes.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Christina or any comments about?
I can tell you, I attended a meeting this afternoon that was hosted by Northern Middlesex Council of Governments with managers from the surrounding towns like Tewksbury, Drake, and so forth. And I asked the question is, are you looking at license fees? And because if you look at our data, you can see not only have we, nothing has changed in Chelmsford recently, we're at market levels. And the answer that came from Tewksbury, who was active on this, because as we know, Drake and Westford and others are facing some fiscal challenges that we all are in this recent inflationary environment, is they are looking at it, but what they're going to do, they think in Tewksbury, is provide the adjustments, which they don't have yet, but then give the providers a year's notice in advance. And that's very similar to what this board did back in 18, last time you adjusted the fees. So now you're sort of at the situation where our fees are relatively above the midpoint and above the average. But then if you look at the data, where it really is significant is really the issue of package stores, where we have 8 package store licenses, we have 26 restaurant licenses, and 7 for all alcohol and 7 restaurant beer and wine. And then you only have 1 in-holder license. That's really where your revenue is, because if you look at the column which says 2024 revenue, obviously the biggest comes from restaurants, all alcohol, and then second from package stores, and then third restaurants, beer and wine. Everything else is sort of in the noise, and since again we only have 1 in-holder. The issue of the club licenses and the 1 days which we waive, again, those are mostly charitable. So we don't, for example, earlier this evening you granted a license for St. Bartnan's. The board's policy has been always to waive those licenses. As you can see, there aren't that many. And then the other issue is on the clubs. I mean, that's the Legion and that's the Elks, and we know they're under duress, and that's why you see those licenses haven't been adjusted. But really, where you're seeing the activity and where our revenue is package stores and then restaurants. All alcohol and beer and wine. And clearly we've seen that they've had adjustments in their fees, and certainly the license that they pay today are pale to what they would have been as cost in same business 20 years ago when they were last adjusted. So the question is you unless you're going to do a nominal adjustment for this year, it's probably best to say, hey, we're going to and again, it doesn't have to be decided tonight, but if you're going to raise them a year from now, to give them notice saying, look, the fee that's right now for a package store license of, $1,800, we're going to increase that to, a greater figure, but we're giving you a year's notice. And the same thing for restaurants. If it's only been $2,500 for some time, and we see other towns, are above us and others are going to make those moves, then that gives them adequate notice. I think the concern in the past, and when I've sat with this board, is, you're in September and you're giving them, 2 months' notice that we're going to increase it by 500 or whatever amount of funding. So that's why there's always been that sort of year notice in advance. But clearly, if you see where the revenue's in the package store license and the restaurant beer, all alcohol and beer and wine.
Paul, who holds the in-holder?
Oh, that's the only in-holder right now with the license is the Element up in Drum Hill.
They don't serve alcohol at the Holiday Inn?
No.
No.
And Best Western doesn't have an active
Right.
license anymore. And then they're undergoing renovations at the former Radisson, but that's not expected to be open until at least a year from now.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this, the one that seems to make the most sense to raise would be the restaurant all alcohol. I mean, that one,
Pouring licenses,
Yeah, it's a pouring
correct,
license,
pouring
exactly.
license, yeah.
because we've added a package store license, we don't know what effect, that probably won't be ready for this year, so we won't be able to make a determination, but I'm told that the package store business is decreased a little bit, and we've added another one, so that might be something to look hard at the time.
Pat, I'm sorry, so why are you honing in on the all alcohol?
The restaurant all alcohol, I mean, that one, a couple communities are significantly higher than we are. On most of the others, we're near the top, if not at the top, it looks like to me, as far as what we're charging, although,
No, we're at the midpoint, really.
well, I
Or
mean,
the
if you look at
average.
package store all alcohol, we're at 1,800, and there's,
The
well, I guess
midpoint's-
there's two at 2,000, so, I mean, we could go up. somewhat on those, so. I don't know, anybody have any thoughts on? What do we?
I think it'd be reasonable to look at going to the average on restaurant all alcohol, Pat.
So like about 2,700 as opposed to 20?
Yeah, something like that. I think, and I think you're right, that's the one that what could probably likely sustain it. So,
Well, yeah, if you look at the average as
I think
opposed
that's
to the
reasonable.
midpoint,
We-
that's the only one that we are below average, actually.
No,
Like next to the midpoint column, there's the averages.
right, but if you look at restaurant beer and wine, that's another one where we could go to 1,400 or 1,500 to be at
Yes.
the average. The
Yeah.
two restaurant ones,
think it's-
basically.
I think it's very reasonable to look towards, moving towards the average. Paul, can I ask you a question? Is this part of the goal thing where we were gonna talk about fees? Are
Yes.
these the only fees that are under the purview of the select board?
Yes, these are the only fees on the purview of the select board. We are gathering and have most of the data from other boards. The reason this is here this evening instead of in context of others is because you're so close to the renewal process for the select board restaurant and package store license process. Because in 2 months, you'll be executing those renewals, and so that's why we accelerated this data this evening.
Understood, thank you.
But I can tell you the results are very similar from what we've seen so far in the other boards, whether it's the clerk's office or community development and building department. We're seeing the same thing. Obviously, there's a reason for it. It's not politically popular, and that's not a criticism. It's just a valid point. When a community is running a budget, in our case, of $169 million, the blowback you get from the license holders or the public, whether it's for a birth certificate, is significant compared to the marginal impact it has on the town's financial bottom line. And that's what it is. And it's not a knock on Chelmsford or any other towns. It's just how the process works and the reality of governing. That being said, I think we should be looking forward, and my thought would be, if you look at for example, the restaurant beer and wine versus alcohol, it's like a 2-to-1 ratio. Somebody who has an all alcohol is basically paying twice as much than a beer and wine. So my thought is, if you're going to raise the beer and wine to 1,500, then I think it would be appropriate to raise the all alcohol to 3,000, and so to keep that proportion, because it is a much more valuable license, as we know. And then, where we don't issue beer and wine package stores, you don't have that same parallel to the package store all alcohol, but I don't think it's out of the question to raise the package store alcohol to like $2,000, because, that's, again, in keeping with, towns that are of Westford and such that are similar to us. And again, I expect that you're going to see other towns doing the same type of vote. So today's midpoint and average is probably not what it's going to be a year from now when these are implemented.
Right, and I seriously doubt any restaurant's going to leave town if we raise the license fee $500 or whatever it would be.
No, we see from our own revenue on meals, tax revenue, that their revenue is increasing because we see it in our proportionate share. So, and we've seen that increase significantly in the last several years.
So, Paul, if I can just go back to what you were saying, in addition to looking at the restaurant beer and wine and restaurant all alcohol, you were suggesting proportional or increases to keep the proportions also on the package store beer and wine and all alcohol.
We don't have any.
Oh, yeah, you don't have any beer and wine, so it's not, but you can raise it to. Yeah.
Well, I know, but.
Yeah, but you can, I get what you're saying, is if it's
Right.
2/3, it's
You
increased by a
You should look
third.
at both
Sure,
parameters.
yeah,
just in-
just in case you get an application, but,
Yeah.
right, so if you went to 2,000, you could make it
1,500 or
1,500 or
something.
so, yeah.
Okay, how does everyone feel about those numbers that we're proposing here? I think we're kind of looking at $2,000 for a package store all alcohol, $1,500 for a package store beer and wine, $3,000 for a restaurant all alcohol, and $1,500 for restaurant beer and wine.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, can you say those again? How much?
$2,000 for the package store all alcohol, $1,500 for the package store beer and wine,
We don't have one of those.
which we don't have, but we might at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good to have need to have a rate on it.
Proactive.
3,000 for the restaurant, all alcohol, and 1,500 for the restaurant, beer and wine.
And then where do we, with that, I would just ask, do we have any insight, Paul, in terms of where, like, the inn holders might be going? Because we might have another one of those coming up too, right?
Yeah. Again, we're at the point now, we're at 3,500, which is, we're at the higher end of the extreme. I think,
Westover's getting,
Yeah.
Westford's getting 5,000, Andover
Right.
4,500.
I just don't know that our quality, careful, the scale of our facility, I'm not sure is equivalent to what you see in Westford or Andover. Westford, you're dealing with the Regency, and in Andover, you're dealing with what, used to be the Rolling Green and so forth. It was like similar to what we used to have at the Radisson, but I don't think the Element has the occupancy or stay or visits that those have. So that's why I'm a little more hesitant to and even what we're hearing with the Radisson being converted to the Hilton brand, they still have no plans to open that function hall. And so therefore, I tend to think, again, it's not going to be the scale that what because what you often see at the Regency and in Andover, are weddings and those type of facilities that we're just not having, which also means you have a lesser demand on some of the public safety components as well, because you don't have that kind of response or concerns of activity. So that's why I'm a little hesitant, Virginia, there to sort
Okay.
of draw the same parallel.
Thank you.
I mean, quite frankly, I don't see those increases as that significant that we couldn't do them for this license year. I mean, how does everybody feel about that?
I mean,
Instead of waiting the year, you mean?
Yes.
that's a 25% increase for an all alcohol license for a restaurant, which is pretty significant when you look at it like that.
Well, we've given
It's
them a
only-
year before, so.
I think
But it's only $500. It's 20% actually.
20%, yeah, sorry. Yeah, thank you. But that's still, yeah, from a business cost perspective, 20% is a lot. I mean, yeah, I don't know.
Or you could step it.
I think it's
You cut
just
it in
a-
half
Step
and
it.
then say you're going to go, if it's 500, you go by
That-
250 and
that's
then another
almost-
250.
that to
or-
me is almost more painful.
I'm just throwing an option.
Well, I mean, by the same token, Pat, like, so the $500 increase for restaurant and all alcohol, if we get 26 licenses, is an additional $13,000. Is that going to make or break the town in this year, or do we just want to give them the courtesy of having a year notice like we usually do?
What do you think, George?
Well,
I'm
I
okay
mean-
either way.
Hmm?
I'm okay either way.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned you gave a year. We gave a year last time, so we'll give them another year. I mean, sure, their revenues have increased, but so have their costs, I think, I mean.
Yeah.
That's true,
Yeah.
I think restaurants between COVID and since then even, I mean,
The cost-
they're getting
cost of
better, right?
goods
But
and, whatever else.
restaurants took a big hit like a few
Yeah.
years ago, so some of them are still kind of recovering a little bit. I don't know.
Are you hungry for this increase this year, Paul?
No, we're fine. This year's budget's fine. It's
Yeah.
FY
yeah. Any
26.
any
that's the
thoughts,
problem.
Pat?
No, I tend to agree with Virginia's sentiments on this. And where in the past we've set precedents by notifying the folks a year in advance, I think we should stay along those lines here. And where this year isn't really the problem, I think it's important to be setting ourselves up for future years. But I'd be okay with putting it out there, but waiting a year to increase it.
Okay.
It's a nice courtesy.
Yeah, it is.
Good.
So should we vote on it now anyway, Paul, so that you can submit it?
Yeah,
with
and
the-
you could
okay.
vote the fees as of January 1st, because this way, if we get a new one that comes in after because the renewals are going to be this fall in October, November, December. But if, let's say, a new restaurant comes in, you could do that, saying effective January 1st, 2025, that would be the fee. And that's fair, because a person's coming in new, they don't need to get a 9-month discount before the new rate for the renewal. So I think that's a nice way of doing it. And then we can just notify people that when Christina and James send out the renewals, that we're keeping the fees the same this year, but as of January 1st, for your planning purposes, next year, the rates will be this. And it's that way, it deals with somebody who comes in with a new application, in that time. Because as you know, we do sometimes get turnover on particularly the restaurant licenses.
So we would say current licensees are grandfathered in
Yeah,
at
until,
the
yeah.
2024 rate?
Right, and then the new rates will be effective January 1, so if somebody goes into the spot that's been vacated at, let's say, Andiamo's in March or April, let's say that restaurant opens in the Oddfellows building sometime next year, we get the fee. I don't think that's unreasonable, because that's gonna be part of their planning costs, and I don't think it's unfair to them. So that's another way of doing it.
Okay. You ready to make
That's
a motion?
reasonable. So when I make the motion, it has to be on these four specifically.
Well, you
Because
can,
it's
you
not
can say,
presented with those numbers
to
in
approve
here.
the license schedule
Just
as presented with the increases,
read the
the
four
following increases
increases.
on January 1st, 2025, yeah.
Okay. I will make a motion to approve the proposed select board licensing fees as presented with the following updates. The package store all alcohol license will be increased from $1,800 to $2,000. The package store beer and wine license fee will be increased from $1,200 to $1,500. The restaurant all alcohol licensing fee will be increased from $2,500 to $3,000. And the restaurant beer and wine licensing fee will be increased from $1,200 to $1,500. And these changes will be effective January 1st, 2025.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll take a roll call vote. Pat?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye. I'm sorry.
And I'm an aye, 5-0. Thank you. All right, very good.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is DPW Director Christine Clancy. And I noticed that we have somebody that just came in the back, and I'm assuming that maybe you want to talk about the thing we talked about, the very first thing at our meeting this evening. No, you can go.
Sorry, I missed it.
Okay, if you want to come up first, then.
Sorry,
and-
do-
Just pop up very quick.
Sure.
Thank you.
We'll put that under reports and presentations.
Thanks very much for having me. I'm Debbie Soriani. You all know me, but on TV. So I'm here promoting the age-friendly effort called Know Your Neighbor. And it started on the 3rd of July. We had, at the country fair, we had Know Your Neighbor pins we were giving out. And we have little chat cards. And so anybody who's wearing a pin can introduce themselves to somebody else with a pin and have little chat cards, fun little icebreaker questions. It's in response to the, I think, epidemic of loneliness and isolation that we hear in the news. We get lots of information about it through our networks with the Mass Council on Aging, also the Age Friendly Network, and we hear so much about it through even with school-age kids, with younger people, with people who are newly single. We just see so much of it, and we think we can make a difference about it. So what this announcement is about October. And we'd like to make October Know Your Neighbor Month all around Chelmsford. And what that means is we have these packets that are free to any town department, any business that wants to partner with us, any group or club, coffee shops, restaurants, organizations like the Elks or the Lions or the Rotary, anybody who wants to increase patronage in their group, in their business, but also encourage people to come to their venue and meet each other. So we have a little packet to give to anybody who wants to partner with us, and it has flyers, it has pins, it has chat cards, we have name tags, and then we also have, what we'll do is we'll help promote these events all around town. Now, who also can do it? Some kids who want to run a lemonade stand and have a Know Your Neighbor lemonade stand give us a call, get in touch with me, and I'll give you a kit. So it's an age-friendly initiative, and it's for all ages, and they're very family-friendly questions for intergenerational conversations, and it's just a way for people to get to know each other again and start talking. So we think it would really be a wonderful way to increase not only sociability with people face-to-face, like a live chat room, right? But also civic participation in different groups. So if you want to promote your committee or your group, have a live event, invite people to come and get to know each other. And so we're trying to promote that. So I thank you for your support. And the way that people can get in touch with me is at the Senior Center by calling 978-251-0533, or my email is on the town website, so you're welcome to get in touch with me. So we look forward to a fun October. We're starting it on, we'll be there on the 28th at the Fall Fair, so I'll have packets there as well, and if people want to get in touch with me there, then we'll be giving out the pins as well. So, thanks so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Okay, bye. Okay, now Christine Clancy, talk about ARPA.
Good evening. Just want to give another ARPA update for the month of September. It was only a few weeks ago that I was here, but we are closely tracking the progress, and as you know, December 2024 is a deadline where we have to allocate all funds that have been allocated to date. And then we have 2 years to finish those projects. So I do the update like we've been doing every month, and here before you. So just a summary of the 61 projects. And we do, I have the detailed spreadsheet as well. Since just the last report, so now we're looking at 96% of all the appropriated funds have been procured, and then 71% of those procured funds have been invoiced spent. I also have before you tonight a list of recommendations. I had given you a preliminary list a few weeks ago. We've gone through and developed another list to appropriate the remaining funds, so I can go over that. Before we dive into that, though, I can also go over just the status of some of these projects. We are, I guess, as far as the estimated amount to procure, we're estimating about $780,000 left of unallocated, based on all the projected forecasts. Just to jump into before I jump to this page, just to go over a summary of some of the updates. We did closely look at a lot of these items. An example is 1B. I did amend the projected forecast a little bit from the last months or previous months, from 569,000 to 525. That's just based on the burn rate that we're seeing monthly. Some of these projects are also nearing completion, so you're starting to see a lot of these. So right now, anything green is still in process. We're starting to see some of these projects turn over to be completed. Onto the second page, we still have the testing and balancing projects. We are moving forward with a scope, and so closely tracking that. That is one of our priority projects with 14, 17, 18, 19, 20, working on that right now. Number 15 is the senior center. That right now we are still showing $100,000 contingency in the projected forecast. So we're tracking that closely in the next month or so. A lot of this work is just happening right now, with a lot of work that will be completed before town meeting in October. Also moving on down the list, we have some items here, 21, 22, 24. We are looking at this a little more closely for the next month's update to see if there's any unspent funds. So there might be a little bit more contingency that could come out of this. Looking to see if we would close any of those or reduce those. So that's something that we still will look at. But I mean, we're still looking at those items. So number 32 is the Kensington Road Pump Station. We do have that on for tonight to procure. We have, and anything over the 265 is being procured through the sewer enterprise. Number 34 is the culvert structural assessments. So we would retain that as just $100,000 for assessing. So we have spent $56,000 to date. The remaining will be spent on the culvert structural assessments. So we don't anticipate any overrun on that item. And then I'm just going to move on down to number 40, the watersheds. So those are going well. Of course, there'll be recommendations coming from that for future, but nothing as far as ARPA allocations. And a lot of these other projects on here, these drainage projects, they are nearing completion. Closeout remains. So as far as our projected forecast, those have been updated, and those are we really shouldn't see any surprises in those accounts as well. Number 53 is the culvert bridge repairs along Stony Brook. We are carrying a budget of $400,000 right now. We're doing the design documents, and bid documents would go out this fall for procurement before December. We will have an updated number to see if that $400,000 would come down at all. So that's something we are closely tracking as well for probably the next month ARPA update. And then the pilot smoke testing program is on for tonight. That came in below what we anticipated. And the gap analysis has been procured, so just executing that. We are receiving a quote for the number 59. I anticipate that quote in the next 2 weeks. And then number 60, that project is underway right now. No surprises as of right now. And then 61, that essentially has been procured, just waiting on the final invoicing, the PFAS. So as you see here, these projects, there's really not many surprises popping up. So that number, the $780,000 of unallocated amounts, I feel pretty confident if we were to reallocate that to the additional projects. Are there any questions on the current projects?
Any questions?
So
Okay, go ahead.
I have a question, actually. Are there any on here? So I imagine that out of your original list, there are some that we did not fund. But are there any on here that you originally had on here that were not funded? Because it looks like they're all procured or partially procured, or is it just maybe like 21, 22, like they're not applicable?
Well, nothing went on here unless it was to be
Yeah,
funded.
so this list is what was allocated. And then I think what you're referencing is this separate spreadsheet is of projects that we have been running a total of potentially allocated. I know going back 6 months ago, some were put on, moved to this list of procurement, some were held. But yeah, everything on this list was procured.
We didn't take anything off.
We didn't take anything off.
Really? So we've managed to procure all of your
Well,
projects with you.
anything in
Kind of
red
fun.
is still being procured, but I guess it's been allocated and it's on this
Yes.
list.
Yeah, okay.
I think, does that answer what particular project?
I'm
were
just
you-
surprised. I was curious if when we received the ARPA funding and when you kind of came up with this list initially, but I guess it's been growing over time, right? Your initial list was slower, so that makes sense. If there was anything that had kind of continued to get bumped off.
I'm not
over the last
aware.
couple of
We
years.
did our initial allocation under the 10 million or whatever
Yeah.
that we had, so,
Yeah,
and then Christine has been managing it
yeah,
month
and
to
it hasn't
month.
changed much.
And
which is
as
just
we
my
know where we
surprise.
stand, then we add more things on.
Yeah,
So we never
yeah,
allocated right up to the limit such that we would have to take
Mm-hmm.
things off.
yeah. That's good.
So I can next go over the list of proposed projects that we would reallocate the remaining. So like I said, about $780,000. The list that I have of 12 projects come to an estimated total of $774,000. And then one other plan that I have in place is that, so we're trying to balance out all these funds right now. We want obviously every single cent to be allocated. So after this, one thing I'm working on is some type of like on-call, maybe design contract that we could potentially procure at the end of this year. Because example is the HVAC senior center. I'm holding $100,000 in contingency. Let's say we only need $40,000. I'm just making up that amount, but that puts $60,000 back into the pot. So I want to have something ready to go to put towards a to reallocate those remaining funds. So it can be controlled a little better with design procurement. So it could be on-call or some type of on-call service contract. So that's what we're working on right now to get that ready, so we would procure any of those remaining dollars the end of this this calendar year. So the first project, and some of these you have seen 3 weeks ago, and I've also expanded and updated some of the costs. I'll just quickly go through each one of these projects. The first one is the Hugo Lane and State Street drainage improvements. This is before permitting right now. We have a section, and we did update the total from last time. Essentially, we would begin an IFB process and be able to procure it by December. This is an area along Hugo Lane, State Street, where the drainage infrastructure is completely deteriorated, and we already have a design in place going through the permitting process. We're just looking for a source of funding, estimated $115,000. Second is the rain garden at Checkerberry Lane, Lake Lane in Overlook Drive. And this was, as we talked about this last time, and the question was, could you allocate this to ARPA if it was already procured? And I did confer with Darlene Lucier, our town accountant, and Paul and Manager Cohen, and so anything that's really not complete, we could reallocate. So there's still a lot of there's some roadway elements or drainage structures that were installed, but there's still remaining work to be completed, working actually this week, and that's estimated $54,000. So by allocating that remaining balance to ARPA, we would free up some of the roadway funds to be reallocated to continuation of roadway projects. So we would be proposing just a partial ARPA allocation for that project. And as far as procurement, that is essentially procured, just not invoiced yet. Number 3 is a GPS unit for engineering. And I talked about this last time, how we have many needs for locating of drain manholes, sewer manholes, other roadway infrastructure elements. And so really have the need for a second unit, and that can be procured through state contract. Senior center vehicles, with 2 vehicles, to replacing of 2 vehicles that are aging out. Again, we would go state contract, so I'm actually receiving quotes right now. We could procure that relatively quickly. The police station HVAC assessment, the buildings, the system's approaching 20 years old, so that's typically when you start to look at potential upgrades. So doing an assessment for future capital planning, we would propose our consultant. We just obtained a proposal from a consultant for that. And again, these are all within the next few months ahead of December. The McCarthy School switchgear assessment and repairs, I did talk about this 3 weeks ago too. This is really becoming a critical project. Our switchgear is critical electrical infrastructure in each of our buildings. McCarthy being the oldest school, we really have to do it's basically an assessment and almost like a tune-up on your car. You get a tune-up on the electrical system. It is costly, but it's necessary given the age of the system. So that's $175,000. Adams Dome repair assessment that is potentially needs some future repairs, and just to understand the repairs needed and the timeline for that, proposing to have an assessment done as part of just the ARPA. For, again, the actual repairs would be a future capital request or some other sorts of request. The CCA exterior improvements, this is, painting, but also just the exterior of the CCA. There's some trim that needs to be replaced and siding that needs repair, estimated, and also scraping of the paint. So that's estimated $100,000. We would have to prepare that as an IFB more immediately, but get that out by December. So likely the work would take place in the spring. Town office bathroom renovation design. This has been on our list, I think, for a capital list for many years, or at least since the past 2 years I've been here. And also there's potentially, upgrading of to have more water efficient plumbing or infrastructure. But first we need to know what that cost is and then do the design. So ARPA would propose just to do the design of these 6 buildings, and the construction would be, funded elsewhere through capital or some other funding source. And then number 11, we had previously allocated I think it was $35,000 to upgrade some of the flow metering at the pump stations. And it is really great software. We're implementing it right now. This is the mission controls where it's more real-time data reporting. You can also tie it to rainfall. So as we look at our sewer capacity constraints, I think this is important to understanding any potentially spikes in inflow or infiltration by having this more real-time monitoring data. Our goal is to have this installed in all 41 of our pump stations. So we've done 5. We're doing it in any of the new stations like Kensington. Milan's under construction right now. This would be proposed for 5 additional stations for the amount of $30,000 just to expand upon that program. And that is a state contract. And lastly, the police station sprinkler repairs. We did recently receive a report, and just given the age of the infrastructure, we are coming upon repairs that are more costly than annual cost, about just over $30,000. Given the amount, we would have to do either a state contract or 3 quotes, but that is somewhat timely too. So looking to move forward on that project as well. In total, so this amounts to $774,000, and these are all needs, but also I think there's a ease of procurement for many of these where things are either ready to go or ready to quickly push through a procurement process or into design or develop the documents. Do you have any other questions on these projects?
Any questions on these new projects? No. I mean, it looks to me like good use of the money, and I like how it comes so close to what the what we have available.
And these are estimates. So as you can see, the state contract, some of these things are going to flush out, I think, pretty quickly. And then we're going to be continuing looking at this balance monthly. And like I said, I think there might be some other locations where we might have some savings, but there's nothing that's really seems to be really of an outlier. We had such a large contingency just in case you had that unknown. And so I think we've gotten through a lot of that. So yeah, I think this is a great time to reallocate the remaining. It gives us time to plan for December so that every dollar is allocated.
Okay. Can we have a motion then?
Is it to authorize? I'm authorizing.
Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
I'll make a motion to authorize the town manager to fund the recommended priority ARPA projects as presented. But that's not right. I know to the right.
You're on mute, Pat.
Pat. Is he trying to say something?
Sorry, there's a second here.
Okay. So Paul and Christine, is that motion acceptable?
Yeah,
to
for
you?
us, we'll proceed with the projects as presented, yes.
Okay, all right. So we have a motion and a second. A roll call vote. Pat?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
5-0. Thank you. Thank you very much for
Thank
all
you.
your hard work on that. Excellently done. All right, next up is Town Accountant Darlene Lucier.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Board of Select Board. Here to present the final numbers for fiscal '24 budget report. Happy to report that '24 was another successful year financially. So I'm going to just run through, start off with the fiscal '24 revenues in where our local receipts came in. Those are all basically local receipts, or other than the property tax. Motor vehicle is one of the highest generator of revenue during the local receipts. So when we did really well with motor vehicle excise this year, there was a budget of $5.6 million, and we brought in 6.1, so it was like $553,000 more than the expected budget. This was actually 7.6 higher than the prior year. Also, I think what we're seeing is people, when they're buying vehicles, the price of the vehicles are more expensive. So I think that's why we're seeing, because you're always, when you buy a new vehicle, that's when your first year is the highest. So in these vehicles are buying, a lot of people are buying electric vehicles. They're much more expensive. I think this is where we're seeing our increase coming in from on the motor vehicle. Permit fees, we did great on permit fees. We actually exceeded that budget by almost $1.8 million. The reason why that was from the prior year, and that was because we did get $1 million from the 255 Princeton Street. So we did get their permit fee. So again, that's kind of a one-time fee that we're not going to be seeing in the next fiscal year. But that did help our bottom line and helped with the free cash numbers you'll see. Mail tax came over budget by about $128,000. That was also a 15% increase from the prior year. In the rooms tax, that came in just about $85,000 over budget, and we did have an increase from there from 16% from the prior year. And most of that is we do have people, the state is housing people here in our hotels, and we're getting the income from those. Funds and revenues, they both exceeded the current year's budget amount just by a small amount of 6%. The fees were 6% and fines exceeded 12%. As I heard you guys speak earlier, the town is looking at bumping up their fees. This does not include licensing. That's a separate line item, but these are just kind of the town department's fees and fines that are collected, and the departments all the individual departments are looking at their fee structures to see if we can increase those fees. Really, most of the fees haven't been updated since 2018, the departmental fees. Alcohol licenses, again, we did exceed our budget, about just under $20,000. It was an increase of 8% from the prior year. I think this is coming off of COVID, really, on this. That we're seeing the increase. During COVID, we weren't getting those fees. Some fees were reduced down, and this is just kind of seeing an increase from the prior year fees, just because everybody's now back open. Everybody's back open from the COVID closure. Income investments, we did great. We had actually a very significant increase from the prior year. We actually had a gain of $568,000. And this is really just due to a really good, strong market. I think if everybody probably knows that in their own personal income market, that just had a really great year for the investment market. And as usual, our real estate and property tax collection always remains solid at about 98 to 99% collected, so we do great there. So the local receipts in total, actually, we came in just about $3 million over budget. So you'll see when I talk about free cash that this is really the main contributor to our free cash number for this year. And I just gave you the individual line items for all of the local receipts and real estate and state reimbursement revenues. On the expenditure side, departmental budgets, we had basically $160 million budget. We had a turnback of about $1.2 million of turnbacks from departmentals. Those are just, we can't really do anything on the salary line items. They are what they are. Expenditures, in departmental expenditures, everybody pretty much did well, spending down their budget on that. But again, it sounds like a lot of money when a $1.2 million gets turned back, but when you have a $160 million budget, that's less than 0.5% of your turn back. So the town department's heads do a very good job managing their budget. So for the free cash calculation, it has not been certified. I haven't heard back from the Department of Revenue yet on a certified number, but this is kind of what I'm predicting. I'm predicting around $4.7 million of free cash. The pieces that kind of is going to be making up that is we had the departmental turnbacks. I had some prior year encumbrance turnbacks, and then we had our local receipts come over, the amount coming in over budget by the $3 million. We did have a small net free cash in the general fund, which was voted at a town meeting for about $160,000. So that's really where you come down to that $4.7 million that I'm hoping will be. Don't hold me to the number until I see that certification come across with the Department of Revenue, but I'm usually not too far off on the number from what they certify. So usually within a couple, maybe $1,000 off sometimes. They might find something to hit me with. I just wanted to just talk a little bit, take outside the general fund and go into the enterprise funds and how the enterprise funds fared. The first one is the sewer enterprise fund. The enterprise fund did well. They actually had a net profit of $321,000. That goes, what ends up doing there between their revenue and their expenses is that it goes to they have their own free cash number, their undesignated fund balance adds to that number. So they should be certified by the Department of Revenue for about $1.2 million will be certified as their free cash or undesignated fund balance. I did give you a list of what their budget versus actuals are for revenues and expenditures. And you can see that that is the difference of the 321 that gets added to their balance from last year. That's how the sewer enterprise funds, they're their own, basically their own department and have their own free cash certification. Stormwater, they had a net profit about $110,000. Again, that just gets added to there, so they should have a certification of $457,575 on the Department of Revenue. If anybody has any questions along the way, please free just to stop me. The golf course enterprise, we really didn't have any activity with the golf course this year other than taking in revenue. We didn't do any expenditures, so it was just the revenue coming in. So we had a profit of $93,358, so that adds to their total undesignated fund balance from the prior year, making their new balance of $424,789. There are some years that we actually we'll have DPW do some work over there, but this year that we didn't, there was no projects over at the golf course. The PEG Access, or telemedia, they actually had the opposite. They actually had kind of what we call a negative free cash. And he was expecting this. He had some projects. He took some money from his undesignated fund balance or free cash at town meeting, and that was voted on. So he knew that he was going to be drawing down on his amount, which he's fine with. So he actually had what we call a negative free cash, but he'll have a positive free cash certified with the DOR, but he actually is taking $84,010 from his undesignated fund balance from the prior year, but he'll be certified as having so his new fund balance will be certified as $452,386. So instead of adding to the amount from last year, he actually had a decrease. Just talk a little bit about stabilization fund and where we're at. Again, because the investment market was so good, we had a net gain of $722,147 for earnings. At town meeting, we did vote to move some money into stabilization fund. So the current balance now for the fiscal 24 final balance in stabilization was $15,338,813. And OPEB, again, because the earning and investment, this fund is with PRIM. They do a great job with investing our funds. So we did transfer in from general fund and from the enterprise funds, but we had an earning investment of $2.1 million gain on this. So the current balance in our OPEB fund is $25,686,175. So it's a very healthy OPEB, and our actuarial and auditors really start homing in on these accounts, and making sure that we're adding to these accounts. And lastly, I just want to talk a little bit about where we are with our community preservation. I actually am going to have to look at the screen because I lost my last page. I didn't print it all out. But we did well with, again, on the revenues. Total revenue collection was $1.7 million, and our commitments were about $1.4 million. We got a state match of $295,000. We had investment income of $24,260. So we're doing well. We have a strong, about a $4 million undesignated or unreserved fund balance in the community preservation. That's good to have. For if another big project comes in, you will have enough borrowing capacity. And I did show you what our debt service looks like going out to 2039. Basically, everything drops off except for the Quiller's Farm in 31. So we really do have enough in their undesignated of $4.3 million if we did want to take on a project. The debt is actually declining, and we would be able to have enough capacity to take on another big project if they were going to do a land purchase or something like that. Any questions on how the year? I'm very pleased with the free cash number of coming in around $4 million.
And when do you expect to have that certified?
So the way that it works is with the Department of Revenue actually was out on, our rep was out on vacation during the Labor Day weekend. She's back, but they put us in a queue. They ask you, when is your town meeting? And you are basically put in a queue based on when your town meeting is. So hopefully, everything, I've sent everything in and my balance sheets with her and everything, but if somebody's having like an early September town meeting or early October, they kind of get pushed before me. But I'm hoping, I would love to hear this week or next week, because it shouldn't really take that much to certify it, but.
Okay, but obviously we'll definitely know.
Oh, it'll definitely be, it always is, yeah, no, they know, they ask the question now, like, when is your town meeting? And are you planning to use your free cash? And I always say, yes, we're gonna be allocating free cash. So they do put you in a higher queue to get that. So I would say within the next week and a half, I'll have a certified number for you.
Okay.
So with what you showed, our stabilization fund now is like between 9 and 10%?
Yes. Yep. We're at like the 9.5%.
And they suggest you be at a minimum of 7? Is that, am I
7 and
remembering
8,
right?
Paul?
7
What do
and
they
8.
say? Well, usually it's between like 8%.
Yeah.
So when we
Good spot.
when we go to the bond rating, yeah, they're usually they like to see that at like an 8%.
Thank you.
And they do like to see our undesignated fund balance. It's actually it's in our general fund. It's actually raised up it's actually bumped up about $2 million. That's another thing they like to see too. So it's actually your fund balance in your general fund, not just not just what you have in your what they call free cash or your stabilization fund, but actually your fund balance and how you end the year in your fund balance. If you start drawing down on your fund balances in your general fund, that's usually a sign that you're having some budget issues and you're actually using your general fund to cover your budget. But this year we increased it by $2 million, so they'll like to see that.
Okay. Any other questions for Darlene?
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
Thank you very much. Good news, yep. Okay, next is we're going to sign the warrant for the October 21st Fall Town Meeting. Paul, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I have before you this evening a 21-article warrant for the October 21st Fall Annual Town Meeting. There are no new additions from the previous list that I provided for you at your last meeting. They've taken some items off. obviously coordinated with Christine Clancy as we were reviewing the financial picture and in terms of what would be funded from ARPA. So we've actually removed articles so that we're not passing over them at town meeting as you approve this evening. So again, upon your signature this evening, we'll deliver it to the clerk's office in the morning. It'll be posted, and then Finance Committee will be in this room scheduled to be in this room on Thursday evening to begin the review over the next 3 Thursdays, as we're nearing October 21st. Since we're already tomorrow will be September 10th, so we're getting there. Again, most of the warrant in terms of format is financial. We anticipate it'll be a 2-night town meeting. Beginning of the warrant is traditional, again, reports of town offices and committees, and then as I've explained to you last meeting, I placed Mary Donovan's citizen petition regarding a pet cemetery after that as a courtesy to her. And it is more of a resolution than it is sort of an appropriation of funds at town meeting, since she has not identified a location for the pet cemetery. And then again, we go through customary what you would see. The finance director, John Souza, has calculated the amount that we perform every year to transfer from the undesignated fund balance that Darlene just described into the cemetery improvement and development fund, which is that mechanical exercise we have to do every fall to maintain the financial integrity, because the sewer construction plan was built on the interest earnings that go to the general fund to go into that project fund, and then that fund is voted when we fund the debt service annually for the sewer project. Next becomes this I pass over the cemetery improvement fund as a request again annually, biannually now at this point, from the Cemetery Commission for ongoing improvements at the Pine Ridge Cemetery, and then some minor work at the West Chelmsford and Hard Pond Cemetery. $60,000 is their request, but again, that comes from their funding. And then I have a placeholder to amend the current year's budget. At this point, I don't think there's a need for that, so that would be passed over. And then we have the citizen petition article from Paul Vergazio to appropriate free cash to offset the costs that was authorized at previous town meeting to borrow for the Parker School feasibility study. And then there's a funding request for roadway and sidewalk construction, funding request to construct the recreational area at the McCarthy Middle School adjacent to the police station. That plan is in its final stages from Dr. Lang. Then it'll go through his advisory committee, and then the school committee, and then to town meeting. And then there's, again, into public works projects, replacement of the sewer force main pipe on Progress Avenue, sewer infiltration and inflow, request for document digitalization, a request for a tree and invasive species inventory and management plan, request for use for the golf course enterprise that we heard about earlier to install higher netting at the first tee, because balls are still going over the netting and pole extensions that are there. There's a request to fund the schematic design for the partial roof replacement at the South Row Elementary School. We're awaiting, and we should have by town meeting, the formal MSBA award to invite us into the accelerated repair program, and we anticipate a reimbursement rate of over 50% for that project. And then I have a placeholder of transferring any balance of free cash into the general stabilization fund. As we've sort of noted on the ARPA thing, this is sort of the catch-all. So if the free cash amount differs or projects above this get defeated, we just sort of sweep it out and put it into the stabilization fund. The difference between free cash and general stabilization fund, as we've explained in the past, is they can both be used for any lawful purpose under state law. The difference is the general stabilization fund requires a 2/3 vote to appropriate monies out, as opposed to a majority vote from free cash. So that sort of completes the whole general fund activities. We then have the major capital article, which would be a borrowing. Article 16, which is the West Chelmsford and South Chelmsford Fire Station projects that Virginia announced earlier this evening, all the upcoming website information hearings, and so forth. We anticipate that will be the first article for consideration, the second session of town meeting on Thursday, the 24th, much like we took the MBTA zoning as the first item on the second thing last town meeting, because it will be a longer presentation. We anticipate, significant questions and so forth. And then there's an article of rescinding an unexpended community preservation fund appropriation for a facade program that's was allocated years ago and is not being utilized, so that would just transfer it into the community preservation fund back to their undesignated reserve. And then the Chelmsford Housing Authority Choice Nonprofit will be coming in for a funding authorization to contribute towards the construction of community housing at 1 Smith Street. That's where the units are right now at Smith Street and Stedman. That unit is at the end of a useful life, and so the 64 units there are proposed to be raised, and then they'll be reconstructing a three-story addition in place of the two-story structure that's there to increase the number of units from 64 to 96. And as we've seen in the past, David Hedison would leverage this money for a significant amount of state and federal grant funding through his nonprofit. The next item is the grant and easements from the Chelmsford Water District is requesting an easement from the public schools to install a water main across the portions of the Parker School, McCarthy Middle School, and the high school. This is to run the water between their plants. For, as you know, they're doing treatment for PFAS and other chemicals. So it goes to Crooked Spring from that road from Smith Street Wells. So that's what's taking place there. And then Article 20 is transferring care, custody, and control and management of parcels from the Select Board to the Conservation Commission to put them under conservation designation. The most notable one there is the Warren Pole property. And then there's a half dozen of wet properties that have come into the town treasurer's possession, again, mostly wet and of no significant value or usage. And those are all mapped out and presented. And then the last article is the street acceptance for a portion of Parkhurst Road. Believe it or not, Parkhurst Road, as you know, has been in existence and well-traveled, and it's now under reconstruction. And while they were doing the reconstruction and sidewalk work, the engineering crew at Public Works made a determination that a portion of the road had never been formally accepted by the town. And why we want to do that is that would then add to our Chapter 90 road inventory, which is the basis on how the state allocates the gas tax monies. It's based on your road miles and your population and your employment. So those are the three factors. So again, we've done this in past town meetings when we come across roads that need to be accepted. Most recent ones were Charles Way and the Nabhasset Drive were the most recent ones by the town. So that's the warrant for your approval this evening. And as I said, from your signatures this evening, it will go to the clerk's office, to the constable for posting, and then FinCom will be beginning this Thursday, and then 2 weeks from tonight, the articles will be scheduled to be presented to you for your formal recommendations at town meeting. So we'll present in 2 weeks, and then you'll have another meeting before town meeting. So if you don't want to take your vote and recommendations in 2 weeks, you'll have another meeting, and then we'll be at town meeting. So basically, we only have 2 meetings between now, 2 regularly scheduled meetings between now and fall town meeting, basically, in the next 2 weeks. Because what happens is we run into Columbus Day, and then it's the Monday, which we would normally be meeting, would be the town meeting. So we expect we'll be back at the end of October for regular meetings.
Paul?
Yes.
I noticed Articles 20 and 21 says submitted by Board of Selectmen.
I corrected
instead
that,
of
Pat.
Select Board.
Yeah, that's been corrected in
It has been?
what
Okay.
you signed today. Pat caught that over the weekend. I apologize. Council and I missed that entirely. That's the result of you take previous articles like the street acceptance and you
Yeah.
extract them and you plug them in and you change all the data inside them, but don't change the sponsorship. So thank you for noting that correction.
Okay, any other questions? Well, we'll take a motion.
Are we approving it tonight?
We're
You're
signing.
making,
the
you're
warrant.
making a
Approve the-
motion to
sign the
sign the
warrant, yeah.
warrant.
I will make a motion to sign the warrant for 2024 Fall Annual Town Meeting as presented.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Pat?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, 5-0. Okay.
Thank you.
Paul, we have some bid awards.
Yes, we have 2 bid awards, and they pertain to Public Works, which is why Christine is still here this evening. And I want to thank her for her efforts to get these items. The first one, as she spoke of earlier, when talking about the opera, is the pilot smoke test program. This is for approximately 11 miles of sewer mains near the Katrina Road Pump Station area of 110 and north and south of 495. This is required by the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection to identify sources of inflow into our sewer system. This was a request for proposals. So there were 5 proposals that were received by Public Works to perform this work. What an RFP is separate than an invitation for bid where it's low price based. They evaluate the proposals blind to the price. They rank them in terms of order of quality and preference. Once that's ranked, you then open that bid, and if that meets your budget, then that's who you go with. So in this case, they ranked the 5 proposals. They received the proposal that was the highest rank from Wright Pierce, and that amount, when they opened the bid, met the project budget. The bid amount was $54,500. Wright Pierce has done similar work recently in the city of Lowell, and there are other references checked out. So we're seeking the approval to award the pilot smoke testing to Wright Pierce in the amount of $54,500. I can stop there, and then we can do the second one separately.
Okay. Any questions on that bid? Okay, we'll take a motion then.
I'll make a motion to approve the town manager bid award awarding the pilot smoke test program of the Chelmsford sewer system to Wright Pierce in the amount of $54,500 as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll take a roll call vote. Pat?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
And I'm an aye.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
The second bid award seeking your approval is for the Kensington Pump Station Improvement Project, the second phase of that work. As Public Works Director Christine Clancy noted earlier, portion of this was partially funded by ARPA. The balance is funded through the Sewer Enterprise Fund. There were 3 bids received on September 5th. The lowest responsible bid was by N&M Excavating of Brewster, Mass. Again, here's another case where we've not worked with this contractor, but again, we have positive references on larger sewer projects in the Boston and Nantucket area, and therefore we're seeking the bid award for the Kensington Road Pump Station Improvement Project Phase 2 in the amount of $495,250 to N&M Excavating LLC. And as you can see, the other 2 bids for this work amounted to $585,500, and then the high bid was $784,000. So again, we're taking, in this case, the low bid, which is also the lowest qualified bid.
Okay, any questions? Okay, we'll take a motion then.
I'll make a motion to approve the town manager bid award awarding the Kensington Pump Station Improvements Project Phase 2 in the amount of $495,250 to N&M Excavating LLC as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. A roll call vote. Pat?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. 5-0.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And you have a report this evening.
Yeah, a real brief from the report this evening, and this has to do with one of the goals for the current fiscal year for the Select Board and Town Manager. This has to do with the 250th celebration of the country's independence. This grant came out, you may recall, a few weeks ago, and they only gave you like a 6-week window to get the grant in, and I want to commend the efforts from all of our partners, basically Library Director Leslie Kimball, CCA Executive Director Lauren Cochran, and Senior Center Director Deb Siriani. They pulled together and pulled a grant application together in the amount of $25,900. Because this money, as I described to you before, has to be expended by the end of fiscal year '25. So basically by the end of next June, even though most of the events aren't going to happen until 2026. So anyway, what this is going to be is it's going to be a celebration at these different venues, including the town common. And the highlight of this is an original town play with music that's going to celebrate Chelmsford's participation before, during, and after the American Revolution. And again, so the effort is we'll be partnering with our, the Garrison House and others in order to make this a true community event. And we expect to hear from this within the next several weeks. They really, as I said earlier, it was a late budget funded project by the state, and they want to get the funds out, because it has to be expended by the end of the fiscal year. They want to get the awards out by the end of this month. So I hope to be back to you next month with good news on this project. And again, remember, it couldn't be used for, capital purposes. There were real strict guidelines, and they really wanted to make it tourism-based or event-based. So I just wanted to let you know how that is, and I'll keep you updated as the results come in.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up is our meeting minutes. We have minutes from our August 19th, 2024 meeting. Anybody have any additional edits or comments about those minutes?
I just noticed
No.
there's a typo at the top of page 4. It says Attorney Doulis Hausler. It should say
Oh.
Douglas. He'd probably appreciate it if we fixed that.
Yeah, they had his last name was spelled wrong.
Yeah, in the first draft.
Okay, anything else? If not, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the Select Board regular meeting minutes of August 19th, 2024 as presented.
As amended?
As amended. Thank you.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Pat?
aye.
George?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
And I'm aye, 4-0. Okay, we're to Select Board Member Liaison Reports and Referrals. We'll start with you, Pat.
I have nothing this evening, Pat, thank you.
Okay, George?
Nothing tonight.
Aaron?
I don't have any liaison reports, but I did want to mention, I wanted to give a little shout out to Sheila Pichette, who everyone here I think knows and a lot of people in town know. Sheila and her husband are moving out of town, and she's my neighbor, so on a personal level, I'm very sad. But as a town, I think Sheila has contributed a lot over decades. Long before I lived here, from what I hear, she has done. She spent time on the finance committee, on the school committee, most recently the strategic plan committee. She's been involved in the master plan implementations. Just the list is really endless. So I just wanted to thank her for her service to the town for the many years that she's lived here, and to wish her and Gary good luck on their new adventure, wherever they go.
All right, thank you.
And I will second that.
Virginia?
The Vinyl Square Strategic Action Plan Committee is looking for volunteers to start planning the annual holiday tree lighting event. So if anyone's interested in that, you can reach out to Brian Creamer, Laura Lynn Maury, Joan Walters, or Joe Tierney. And also just a heads up, they are working with DPW and Mass DOT to schedule a public input session later this fall for the Vinyl Square Improvement Plan. And then from the Council on Aging Board, if users of the center are not already aware, the main hall is under construction for the HVAC upgrade, so they just want people to know that. And they have shuffled some events and things around. You can check directly with them.
Okay, that it?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a couple of things. Last month, Aaron and I attended the 4-H opening ceremonies. Remember being there?
Yes.
Which is always a good time. The youth, they're so enthusiastic, and they put on a nice opening ceremony. And I actually went back the next day, and there's so much going on there. It seems that more and more kids are getting involved as time goes on, so that's a good thing to see. Last Friday, Paul and I were out in the back parking lot when Wholesome Corporation presented a donation to the food pantry and a table of plenty in the amount of $86,300. Definitely well appreciated, and something that will definitely be used with the number of people that are taking advantage of both those opportunities, the food pantry and the table of plenty, the additional funds will definitely help with that. And lastly, thanks to everybody who came to the 9/11 Remembrance Ceremony, Paul and Virginia, on Saturday. It was a good event, had some good speakers and performances of taps and other speakers that talked about their reflections on 9/11. So thank you to those. And with that,
Pat, we might also want to mention the fire department is holding a 9/11 ceremony on 9/11 this Wednesday at 8:30.
Okay, we're ready for adjournment to executive session.
I will make a motion to adjourn to executive session to consider the acquisition of real property, strategy with respect to potential litigation, Ledge Road commercial truck traffic, and to review executive session minutes for approval from July 22nd, 2024, August 5th, 2024, segments 1 and 2, and August 19th, 2024, not to return.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and roll call vote. Pat?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye.
Virginia?
Aye.
And I'm aye. Okay, we are adjourned to executive session. Thank you.